Welcome, Sharon. Thank you so much for being here. It is an honor to have you here. You have an incredible story that I can't wait for others to hear.
Yeah, thank you for, I've watched your channel, so it's kind of weird, like I'm talking to you because you really helped me when I was going through it. I didn't have anyone to talk to, so naturally a woman looks on YouTube for some kind of help.
Yes.
And it's just crazy, and I just think, I'm 43, so I feel like I could help or give some hope to older women too. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Good.
letting me share my story, and I hope that it can help others. And I definitely really appreciate you and your story. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy to tell it.
That's wonderful. I'm just excited to get into it. So let's dive into it. So to start, think about, tell us on the journey that you were on when your infertility process started. About how old were you? When did you know you needed help? You can start there.
Yeah, so basically, I didn't know that I had issues until quite late. I'm 43 years old. I met my husband super late in life, 37. We got married when I was 40. And before then, I never really considered having children. Um, and basically we got married, and a year into our marriage I had a miscarriage, and I got pregnant naturally. And I think it was from that moment that I really had the yearning to become a mother for the very first time in my life. Um, so yeah, basically I had a miscarriage. It was an ectopic pregnancy, and I actually had it while I was going into the doctor to do an ultrasound. Um, so it's pretty upsetting, but it did spur a chain of events. So from there on, I got the HSG procedure, which is the dye test to check your fallopian tubes, and they found out that my one of my tubes was blocked, which I didn't know. So I was with Kaiser at the time, and I actually went in for a procedure to unblock. And I remember the lady said to me at Kaiser, we're going to go in and look, and don't worry, I'm the best at unblocking tubes. You're going to be fine. And when I woke up, it was like, no, couldn't unblock that. It was way too blocked. And
Wow.
it's probably it's probably been that way for a really long time. So we couldn't unblock it, but she said, don't worry, you can do IVF. So I was like, okay. um, and that was kind of the beginning of my journey into IVF. So, and again, I talk
No,
about, sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I'm sorry. Remind me, how old were you at that point?
So I was 41. I got married at
Okay.
40, had miscarriage at 41.
Okay.
And yeah. Um, and ironically, it was the end of the year. I was 41 years old. And
Mm.
I have a really good company that I work for. And I just checked to see with another medical plan, which was Cigna, they actually covered fertility treatments. So I quickly switched in December, and basically the next year, so that was the year I was still 41, I found Spring Fertility Clinic and to start IVF treatments. And I found that through, I was doing acupuncture, and she had suggested a doctor there. So I kind of contacted them, and I started off with I went in to see a doctor. And I think, most women, well, I'm going to talk from my own perspective because I'm older. But I went in with my husband, and, my doctor, Dr. Klatsky, is great. He's also very realistic. So I remember going in for that first meeting, and there's a big chart, and there's, age 25, there's age 30, and the chart was definitely going all the way down for my
Yeah.
age. And, I remember he was talking about statistics and, my age, and very unlikely, but, there are chances. And he asked us if we had any questions, and I couldn't remember any questions by the end of it. I was really depressed. And I think I remember saying to him, just let me know, have you ever had a 41-year-old woman come into you with a blocked tube that has had success with IVF? Can you just tell me a yes or no? And he said yes, but he said very quietly. So, we kind of left there, and it was kind of like all systems go, because he was like, you don't have a lot of time. Every month that goes by, you're getting less and less eggs. So we really need to start like ASAP. So basically, we decided that we were going to do mini IVF because of my age, which is a lesser dose of medication for stimulation because I have less eggs at my age. And I started my cycle in April 2009, and I had the first cycle, and I had only one egg. And the egg that I did have was a 6AA, which is the highest quality egg. So of course my hopes were like, okay, I don't have that many compared to other women, but let's really hope that this egg was going to be tested, PGS tested. So it was tested and it came back abnormal. And it gutted me, because
Yeah.
so many injections, and it's such a rigid procedure. Every injection, every timing counts with IVF. Your hormones are all over the place. You're scared, you're kind of happy, you're scared to be hopeful. There's so many emotions. And I don't know why, but I remember they called me and I was at work, and she said, I'm sorry. I could tell, from her first word, like, hey, Sharon. I knew what that meant. And she said, do you want to know what it was, the sex? And for some reason, I just wanted to know. And it was a girl, which, sorry. I mean, it still affects me to this day.
Yeah. And naturally, I mean, we, like you said, we work so hard. And when you do find the gender, it makes it so much more real. So
Yeah.
I understand.
And I really wanted a girl too. And
Mm,
yeah, it cut me just as much as having a miscarriage, to be honest. And
mm,
I knew it would make me feel worse knowing, but I just needed to know.
mhm.
So anyway, basically, I had 2 days of mourning, and then my doctor, Dr. Klatsky, he called, put me and my husband on speakerphone and said, okay, that wasn't the result that we wanted, but you need to get back on the horse because you don't have a lot of time. So basically, that was 3 days later, I started a second cycle of mini IVF. And, I mean, I was tired, bloated, disappointed, but, I just thought, okay, that didn't work out, just move forward, you know. So we went and did a second cycle, and he got 6 eggs, and 4 of them survived and went into PGS testing, and 1 came back normal. And I think I was 42 then. So that is the odds. I met the odds. 1 in 4 at my age, you get a normal embryo.
So this is 2019, you said, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so then I was like, okay, great, we have 1 egg. It's frozen. And I was also, all this time looking on the internet, YouTube videos, your videos, Selena, other women that were going through it. And I found one video about a lady who had done the ERA test, which is that, I think it's endometrial receptivity.
Receptivity. Yeah.
And, and that's basically to test the lining to see when is the best time to do progesterone. So I asked my doctor, hey, can I do this? And because my clinic does it, and he kind of frowned upon it a bit and said, well, it's a newer test, there's only a few studies, we know when to do it. And I said, okay, because I trust you. But then because he's a good doctor, he kind of backtracked on that and said, you know what, if you want to do it, I don't want to stand in your way because I don't want you to regret anything. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, if I have one egg, I want to give it the best shot possible. So I'll put myself through another cycle, you know, just to see, because I only have one egg. Basically, my doctor said, um, if you want to do it, I don't want to stand in your way. So let's do it if you want to do it. So I went through another cycle, and they did the test, and it came back the same time that he would have done it anyway. So in my mind, I was like, well, that's okay. It was worth it for me to go through it anyway, because then I'm not going to have any regrets or look back.
Right.
Um, so then I had 6 weeks off because being pumped full of drugs for 6 weeks can make you really moody. My poor husband,
Hmm.
he definitely took a lot, and he's great. So, and I also wanted to like lose a bit of weight because it makes you so puffy and feeling awful. So,
Yes.
6 weeks off, and then we did the implant. And when we did the implant, um, everything's great. They're playing like jazz music. Everyone's like in a happy mood. My doctor, this is obviously what he loves, is the implanting. So they implanted, you see it, you have the video and you see everything that's happening, and they suck up the embryo. And, then they're supposed to ring a bell when it's inside of you. So, we're waiting for the bell, no bell goes off. So then everyone's silent, and the embryologist comes back out and says, it's stuck in the tube, it's not in her. So everyone's like, kind of like, the jazz music has stopped. And
Whoa.
it's kind of like, huh, okay, just remain calm, and, my doctor was like, well, this has not happened to me before, but it happened to the other doctor and they still got pregnant. So don't worry. So bit of a tense moment. So they did it again. And it went in this time, and of course I was worried that, because I guess when they push it out, it kind of alters the embryo a little bit. It doesn't make it any less quality, but it kind of alters the outside. So I was a bit worried about that. So but anyway, it did get in there eventually. And it was implanted, and I had the 2-week wait, and then I found out I was pregnant on October 31st.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's, kind of the long version of my story. And now I have a 5-month-old boy who my husband's looking after right now.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, were there any procedures or surgeries that maybe you didn't talk about that you had that had to get done beforehand?
No, the same, like the HSG and the 2 cycles of mini IVF and the ERA.
Okay.
I will say, I did acupuncture, and that really helped as well, I think.
Yeah, some people say that it really makes a difference. Um, Now, the ERA, what were your results?
Basically, the time frame, I don't remember exactly, I apologize, but the
No, it's
time
fine.
frame that they had identified was the same as what my doctor would have done. So it wasn't a surprise to him. I was like, yeah, that's what we're going to do with you anyway. We're going to give you
Okay.
progesterone on this day. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, but still, what a great doctor, like you said. I mean, even if at times where, it's not something that maybe they would have done, he still listened to you and allowed you to have a voice, which I think is huge.
yeah, and I think, he did ask me, I think this was the pinpoint of the question. He asked me, why did I want to get it done? And I said, because I don't want to have any regrets and I have one egg. And I think that's when I said, well, okay, I trust you. He kind of backpedaled and said, hang on a minute. I think we should go with what you want. So
Yeah.
I think, I don't regret that decision to this day. It did put me through a lot, my body a lot, but it was worth it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I was just talking to somebody the other day where it's true. It's like you go through everything and, and it's so hard. It's so hard. But as soon as you see that baby, those first days, you're like, man, it was so worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think, and I said this to you earlier, before we start recording, but you know, just because you have a baby, you just never ever forget everything that you've been through. And infertility can still follow you after you have a baby. It's always there. It's hard for women to talk about. I wish I could have talked about it more, but I didn't feel comfortable talking to my friends who weren't going through it. I'm a very like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And that's what I did with all my IVF cycles. I followed procedure and, I kept it in. And I think that's just so hard, for women in general. And so if you do have someone to talk to, or you do have a YouTube channel that you can relate to, like I related to yours, you know, um, use it, I would say.
Totally. Totally. I think that's so important to find that support group and that person or that, whether it's online or not, like you said, anything helps.
Yeah.
Okay, so just tell me about your office. It sounds like you're reproductive endocrinologist. It sounds like you really liked your doctor in the staff. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, my doctor, and I had a nurse as well that, checked in with me that because it's very complicated process. So you need to be
Mhm.
reminded like, okay, I have to take the shot at this time and do this and that. They were always my doctor was always very straightforward, which, honestly, I appreciated, especially at my age. I don't want to be told, like, yeah, it's going to be easy. Obviously, it's not easy. And the older
Right.
you get, it's not easy. But, he was always very straightforward, honest, and realistic. And, no matter what the result, that's what I would want, with a fertility doctor personally. And I think, I follow procedure, and IVF is so detailed that every injection, every timing counts. So you really need someone that you can trust. So,
Right. It's true. It's so true. I remember having that calendar just every day.
yeah.
Look, okay, is this the right day? Is this the right time?
Yeah.
Because that stuff is expensive and you don't want to have to pay for more.
No.
Oh, well, that's good. And remind me, where are you located?
Oh, I'm in San Francisco.
San Francisco. Okay, okay. So if anybody's in San Francisco, they know who to look for.
Yeah.
Very
So
good.
I think I have a couple of sites, and I think they're excellent. So,
Awesome. Good. Good to know. So tell us where you are today.
yeah. So I'm, lucky enough to have a 5-month-old baby boy, Jackson. And
Mhm.
I actually, have some good news on top of that. I'm actually pregnant right now. I'm seven
Ah,
weeks pregnant, naturally. Um,
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, it's still kind of a shock to me because honestly, I was preparing for another cycle next year, um, and we just, tried, and it happened. So you know, I really wanted to share my story because, I am 43. I have all the odds against me. And I just want to let other women know that, there is hope out there. And when I was going through it, I'm not going to pretend and say that I thought it would happen for me because I was always kind of realistic of
Mhm.
statistics, and I kind of didn't really want to think of the end result because I was too scared. I just wanted to go through it and But, you know, it can happen. And someone really close to me always told me it only takes one egg. So you might have one egg or you might have 20 eggs, but we have the same chance. So I just want to really like mention that to help others, because I don't know how this happened that I'm pregnant now, but I'm super grateful. So
Wow. And today you're getting an ultrasound done. Is that correct?
yeah, getting an ultrasound done. So I'm hoping that everything is going to go okay. You know, yeah, I'm basically still in shock, but a good shock. But you know, I will say that infertility, you know, still affects me even now. I'm pregnant. You know, every day I'm wondering, you know, is this going to stick? You know, and
Mm.
that's never going to go away.
Yeah, it's a scary, it's so bittersweet, isn't it? You're so
Yeah,
excited and it's so scary at the same time. And even for me, I didn't really have a reason to believe, or, I didn't go through any losses before, but I still was anxious. I was still worried every day, and it's hard. It's hard.
yeah, it's definitely hard. Like I'm super thankful for where I'm at. I feel very lucky. And to be honest with you, if something doesn't go right with this pregnancy, I'm just going to be super happy that I still can get pregnant at 43. So that's kind of the way I look at it. You know, there isn't a be all end all. It's like the most important thing that I want to say is that one thing my doctor told me is that this is a journey. So, you know, you may go through a cycle and not get the results that you want, um, but you can either choose to stop or you can continue, but things aren't always going to go your way with fertility. I know that you've mentioned that in videos. um, you don't have any control over it. You know, you have control over when you take your medication, you know, when you know, all of that stuff. But the end result, it's ultimately, in my view, is really what my body wants to do. So the
Right.
best way I found to cope with it is, you know, exercise really helped. You know, going for walks, taking deep breaths. When I got pregnant the first time, naturally, I was exercising 30 minutes, you know, in the morning. And I think, you know, that helps. And when I was doing IVF, I was going on walks. I did not feel like running a marathon, but I did go on
Mhm.
walks. And you know, this time I got pregnant naturally and I was on my Peloton, you know, eating well and not really thinking about, you know, I have to get pregnant. I thought I'm just going to try. And, you know, I think that really helps with looking after your mental and physical health when you go through, you know, especially at the beginning, because you're going to have so many bumps in the road and it's just never a perfect line, you know?
It's so true. That image, I don't know if you've seen, but I've seen so many times on social media where it's like your journey isn't linear, it doesn't go in one straight line. It's, you take a couple of steps forward, you take a couple of steps back, and it's just is what it is. And you have to do the best with, like you said, what can I control? And a lot of that is just that mindset of expectation, or trying not to have expectation, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, I think once you take the expectation, for me, I just kind of went to acceptance. You
Yeah.
know, I, one thing, when I was doing, actually during my implantation, I was a week into the implant and I went to get acupuncture. And, you know, I'm not like I mean, I am a spiritual person, but you know, I can be, I don't know, I guess I was laying down and I was kind of relaxing into acupuncture. And I had this, there was this like yellow light that was flashing. And for some reason, my mind kind of went to, this is my embryo. And I remember because it was like a yellow light flashing. And, you know, I remember like talking to it and I was saying, thank you for showing up. You were one
Mm.
out of four and you showed up. And I basically said, if you decide to stay, I would really like you to do that. But if you decide to go, it's gonna be how it's gonna be. But I really want you to stay with me, you know.
Mm.
And I kind of like woke up, and then I told my acupuncturist, and she started crying. And, literally that night, I just felt like a body shift. I don't know what it was. And I told my husband the next day, I'm either pregnant or I'm not pregnant. And it happened last night, I'm telling you. And I really believe that, that my embryo came to me. And I'm not that kind of person that's like, oh, foo foo. I'm really not. But I truly believe that that happened that day. He came to me
Yeah.
and I'm going to stay.
Wow, that's so cool. That is so cool. Is there anything that you would have done differently looking back, or anything that you would have told yourself now that you're here in this place while you were just starting out in that journey of yours?
Yeah, I think I don't, looking back, I probably want to be a bit more kind to myself, because I feel like you're pumped full of hormones, and I just I didn't feel myself, and I felt like I put on weight and I was unattractive. And I know my husband loves me, but he can tell me 50 times, but when you're going through IVF, you're like, I just feel I don't feel good,
Yeah.
so I wish I would have given myself a little bit of a break, because it's such an intense procedure. And if you go through it, 3 loops, you're not going to feel great.
Yeah.
Um, and I would also say, know and be proud of yourself for going through fertility treatments, because, I remember when I was going through my second cycle, one of my best friends said, I couldn't do what you do. I could never do and go through IVF. And she hadn't started her fertility journey yet. But, I feel like when you've had a loss, or, when you really know you want a child, every woman is a warrior, and you don't even think about it. You just go through it, and you take the shots, and you just keep going, and you keep going. And when you suffer a loss, it's so sad, but it
Yeah.
also propels you to the next level. And like I mentioned before, when I lost my egg through PGS testing, it cut me as much as a miscarriage. And it would have been easy to say, okay, I'm done. But I think every woman has it in them to continue, if they want to. And you know I think we're just propelled by strength. So
Yeah.
I would say that. And definitely it's a journey, like I mentioned before. Don't have any expectations. You can hope for the best, but it's never going to go in a straight line. And one thing I really want to get across, especially being 43, is age. I mean, age is a factor. It is harder when you get older, but it can happen. And I kind of wish someone maybe would have told me that the first time I went for my meeting, because it was so depressing. I literally came and I thought, I have to start in the next 20 minutes. That's every minute that's going by, my eggs are dying. Like, I make a joke, but my eggs are dying. And I had a blocked tube. And I also forgot to mention that my right tube was blocked. And when I went to the fertility clinic, they discovered that my right ovary was so small, it wasn't even
Mm.
showing up on the ultrasounds, and it wasn't producing any eggs. So
Wow.
he used to do, vaginal ultrasounds, and I get so frustrated with my ovary, because he keep poking around, and I'm just like, just show up, show up, do something. And it would not show up. So I literally have one side working, one tube, and one ovary. I had one egg, and it can happen. So don't give up.
Wow. That's so good. And which makes your pregnancy now even more of a miracle.
I know. I honestly don't know. I think it's true what they say, is that women are more fertile after they after they have a baby. And,
Yeah.
I was tracking my fertility, and it was definitely like a lot of days, but I really didn't think anything of it. So I'm just getting used to having a 5-month-old. So it'll be
Oh my
interesting.
gosh.
But
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. The adjustment is large, but you'll get through it. You're a strong woman. And so to hear your story, to see your story will bring so much hope to individuals who are where you were. So I think it's so good that you are a great just a reminder that it can happen, like you said.
yeah, it can happen. And, I mean, looking back, I really couldn't change the course that I was on because I've always wanted to have a child with someone that I love. And I didn't meet my husband until later. So I wouldn't change anything because it kind of played out how it played out. And it was hard.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just glad to have, a supportive partner because I don't think I could have got through everything without him.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't I agree. I don't know if I would have been able to get through it or would have even done it, if I didn't have someone like, who as supportive as my husband is. So I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I saw your husband like talk to you after I think you did an implantation and it didn't work. And
Yeah.
then I remember your husband was saying like, okay, we've had like 2 days, we're gonna get back on it. And I always remember thinking like, oh my God, like our husband should go out and have a drink because my husband, that's another thing is like I feel bad for the husbands or the
Yeah.
partners. They don't have anyone to talk to at all.
Yep.
They have to deal with what we're dealing with. So I wish there was more support for them actually.
I do too. And Mondo and I, we've talked about possibly creating that, but gosh, he had every great intention in doing that, but he's just so busy. But
Yeah.
more and more I am seeing some guys on Instagram that are, voicing their story. So hopefully we'll see more of that in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. I just commend you for just your strength and how you've overcome the challenges that hit you, that you were faced with. It's pretty amazing that you have now a 5-month-old precious boy and a little one growing inside of you now. And I really, really hope that you get some good news today and that you continue to get good news in months to come.
I hope so too. Yeah. And,
Yeah,
thanks for doing this because I think it's important that other women can see some other hope, because it's just so,
for
I think
sure.
it's always going to be a taboo subject, unless you're, I don't know, it's always going to be that way. But the more that we talk about it, hopefully it will open up more.
Totally. That is the goal. That's the hope, and who knows how long these videos will last, but hopefully, people years later who are looking for these stories, it will still provide hope and encouragement to them.
Right.